You could have the same thing happen to 5 people and all 5 would respond differently. You could respond positive and become almost what I call bulletproof. You don't stress out, and then your confidence that doesn't get attacked. I'm just telling you, it's like, well, you got to train yourself. You got to take the stairs, not the escalator. It's not going to happen right now. And everybody is impatient. And that's the problem. It's brick by brick by brick. And before you know it, you got a beautiful, confident house.
Right. And so how would you what are some of the tips that you can give to overcome that adversity in the mental state? Because as you said, you can hit the ball into the net against the greatest player or an 8-year-old, but the ball hit the net. So how do you differentiate between the two and control that mindset to now focus on, let's just pick it back up and keep going so that we don't dwell on what happened, but what could be next? Like pick yourself back up, that resilient.
I love this question because it's really in my wheelhouse. The ultimate flip mentally, when you make a mistake, you can smile because smiling has a profound effect on the nervous system. Besides what it's going to do to your opponent, they're going to go, "Oh, what's this dude up to?" Like, and that's Alcaraz. He's a Broadway performer with a racket in his hand. That's why I called it long ago where this was going because mentally, besides all the physical stuff, it was just a different guy. So that's the key, but it's hard to do. And if you're all about the competition and you're all about loving the battle, you handle pressure better. So I try to explain it very, very differently. And, instead of saying, but went in the net against it, no, I don't even go there. I talk about they control this by responding differently. That's why, like Dr. Nip said, you're out there by yourself. When you play doubles, people are very different. They have a therapist on the court. They make a mistake. They come up, they hug, they kiss, everything's fine. And that emotion's gone. You're letting other things control you. And they respond very different on mistakes in singles and doubles, but it's still a mistake. I train them to think like this, and that instills enormous confidence. And that overall affects the mental toughness, not only of an athlete, but of a person, because you got to be able to handle things, and how you handle it is your perspective of how you can flip it and turn a negative into a positive. And that's the hardest thing to do. You got to control the situation. Don't let it control you. But it takes time. It's hard to just wake up one day or be born that way. Your environment has a lot to do with it. What you read, what you put in your mouth, what you put in your head, all this stuff can have something to do with it. But you got to take a step back and understand that it takes time like anything else. Good things in life take time.
I love that. You're right. And it's about flipping that script over and over again because of everything that quote unquote bad could happen, there's always a good to counter that. And it's where we shift our focus, shift the narrative, flip the script. And now it's like that resiliency to back up. Yes, the ball hit the net. So what? Let's move on. So keeping that mental fortitude and strength going. I love your take on that too.
Yeah. Well, let's say when people hit the ball like 10 feet out or they hit it a foot out, they respond differently. Let's wow. Or hits a frame and it goes out, or it goes out a little bit. They think it's a worse miss because it hit the frame. There's
Yeah.
difference in positive errors and negative errors. If you got the right intention, I tell the kids all the time, that was a positive error. It's kind of silly when you start getting into it like that. It is what it is. And the best thing I tell them is next. If you have to remember to forget, I think that's the number one thing in life and sports and anything. You want to remember the good stuff, obviously, but you got to remember to forget. If you don't have a short memory, you're going to live in the past, and I guarantee you'll get past. Now it's your serve. She Nip can serve. Your serve. All right. Yeah.
That's great. So yeah, we're talking about, I love the concept of flipping it. We have a chapter in the book, it's important to flipping. But I think, in modern world, the rich world of form, it's kind of been an experience because you're by yourself, it was important and really feels a lot of ownership for everything. And then my world is a little bit different with death and dying. And so when that happens, patience, I think this book is really great for that, where people are not able to do the things they're doing before because they're sick. sometimes now it requires a desire to reframe. If you want to keep, so everything has to be reframed and looked at a different way. For my patients who have 4 to 6 months left to live, they gotta look at life differently and they've got to really enjoy life, enjoy every single moment. That's going to improve their quality of life, their mental strength, and what they're doing every day. Sometimes they get so caught up with the disease they forget what life is about. And the same thing happens when people are not able to run, the miles that were running before, and now they can just walk. The fact is they have to reframe all of that. Part of reframing, we've always talked about gratitude. It's so important to be grateful for what they do. When they reframe it, it just changes their whole perspective. Yes, because it's almost like what we focus on can limit us. And being in your space with your patients, yeah, you got to bear some bad news and not let the news be the determining and defining factor. But it's like now it gives a new purpose for living. And that's the reframe of the mindset. So I love how in two different scenarios, the lesson is still the same.
Is that
I love that. And so when we talk about overcoming limiting beliefs or self sabotage, what are some of your tips to help build that self esteem and that self confidence? Because we can really keep that focus if we're not in the right mindset.
Yeah, I think the number one thing, most people are kind of afraid. I think everybody should try to ask for help. You know, that I think that's really important. People, they might luck into something and then they get more confident. You got to it's hard to do things. "Well, I can't do that. Look at that person. I can never do that. You know, they don't understand. They were right where they are today and they had to take the stairs. No one just zips up there to the penthouse. So the number one thing would be ask for help, you know, and, don't be afraid when you ask for help. If you get rejected, that's part of the journey. If you would see all these people that are very confident and whatever they do are successful, they failed so many times. They've been rejected so many times. It's not a slam dunk, but no one looks at it like that because we look at it like they're this, but they don't understand what it took to get there. And everybody has a story. Everybody has a story, and you can't make the stories up half the time. But the people look at those people, oh, look at that. So I would say the number one thing is ask.